What's up, everyone? Bryce Koon here with the Crowded Booth Swarm Talk, the Georgia Tech, the number one Georgia Tech show that you got on the internet. We're talking recruiting, a big weekend coming up. But before we get into it, make sure to like the video, make sure to subscribe, make sure to hit the notifications bell. We're a little bit late tonight. That's partly on me. I'm not going to blame my guest for it. We were working out some technical difficulties. But my special guest, no, is not Ralph, but it is going to be the young man himself, Mr. Bryce Dobson. Dobson committed. He is not officially a Yellow Jacket there, Bryce, but man, you're getting close. How you doing? And let's talk, brother. Let's talk. How you feeling? Getting closer to signing day.
I'm really excited. I'm gonna sign on the 21st, so it'll be the national signing day, and I'm really excited. And we're gonna have four of my other teammates, five of us total, so it'll be a good time.
It'll be a good time. You and I were talking right before we went live. The fans got to hear from another receiver earlier this week who committed from Texas A&M, but I went from the high school aspect. Buster Faulkner, new offensive coordinator. You got a visit from him today. Let's hear. I mean, what's he like? What do the fans need to know about him, and why do you like him?
Yeah, I like him a lot. He actually graduated from Parkview, so he grew up about 10 minutes away from me right now. So that was one of the main topics we talked about first, and just because he knows the area real well, and he ironically, my offensive coordinator PJ Katz at Brookwood, Coach Faulkner was his OC when they were at Valdosta State. So he had a good personal level with me, and he was real nice, and he was comparing me to Ladd from UGA because of how familiar he was with them. And he's a real good guy. I like his style of offense, obviously, because he likes to throw the ball. He likes to develop receivers, and like I said, yeah, I'll be running around deep routes for him, and that's kind of what we were talking about.
Yeah, I remember when I interviewed you when you announced your commitment and everything. You kind of talked about you were that guy, you and your high school teammate there, Dylan, who is going to have a heck of a career as well. When you look at Buster Faulkner's offense, you kind of mentioned it already. What about it excites you? Is it the idea that you can develop into an NFL type player one day? I mean, what really is it?
Yeah, like I said, how he's developed Ladd from being being a walk-on guy to being one of the best receivers in the NCAA right now, and kind of how he's developed him, and kind of if he's comparing me to him, and kind of what he's doing, and one day I can get to the level that he is, and with his help. And like I said, he likes to develop quarterbacks and receivers, and he likes to throw it a lot.
He likes to throw it a lot. You guys are accumulating talent.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, yourself, they got some good guys returning. It's a big weekend, so I know that you're probably in a group chat. You're probably with a bunch of other commits. What's the excitement level from the commits, and maybe some guys that are going to be announcing here pretty soon? What's the excitement level for this 23 class?
Yeah, it's real exciting this weekend. Last weekend had a couple of commits, but this weekend's definitely going to be one of the busier ones. Coach Key today, he was talking about how many there was. He said it's kind of gone up rapidly, about increased 7 in the last couple of days, which is real exciting to me. So there's going to be a bunch of commits and a bunch of high-profile kids that we're trying to get to flip in the last couple of days. There's obviously been some decommitments in the last couple of days, but I think it'll be all good in the long run. Especially with Texas A&M kid transferring in, we're real excited about him. Offensive line's still looking pretty good, so there's a kid that's currently committed or currently decommitted from Eastern Carolina. That we're trying pretty heavy to get him to make sure he enjoys his weekend this week, and hopefully before first signing day he kind of knows what he wants to do. But there's a lot. My host, I've known him since middle school, so I'll have a good experience, and he'll kind of show me around. We're gonna catch a basketball game with a bunch of the kids, so they're gonna be able to see the other sports and kind of the other daily life and student section type of thing, I guess. And so we'll do that, and it'll be a lot of fun. But like I said, we're definitely in a big group chat. We're talking about who needs to stay committed and who needs to flip.
Yeah, and remember you talking about, I mean, the opportunity for you to play close to home, Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
You love the city. You're also, for people who don't know, you're quite the swimmer.
Yeah.
So are you in full season for that right now as well?
Yeah.
You're ramping that up?
Yes, sir. Swim season starts in October, so I'm finally starting to get in shape. it's going into Christmas break, so I'll swim every day over the break other than this weekend. We actually have a meet on Friday and Saturday during my OV, which I won't be at, but it's no big deal. But it's in full season. That'll end in February, and I'll try to. I got third in the state in the 50 freestyle last year, and so I'm trying to end my swim season on a state championship, and then after that I'll go into the full track mode.
I love that. A great athlete, and they talked about that's one of the biggest reasons with the state championships being at Tech. You're really familiar with the campus. Last question for you before we let you go. You're signing December 21st. You're kind of ready to get this. You're ready to get this whole experience done, but take on the new experience. What should fans know about you, maybe on the field and off the field?
Yeah, definitely. On the field, my game is definitely just pure speed. I like kickoff return, punt return, and definitely getting the ball in my hands and kind of doing my own thing with running around defenders. I'm not gonna be the guy that'll run right into the middle linebackers and try to truck them or anything like that. I'm gonna try to definitely bounce it outside, but like I said with Coach Faulkner's offense, I think it'll be a lot of fun for me, and I'll fit in great. And off the field, I'm more of a quiet guy. On the field, I like to talk a little bit on the field, but off the field, I'm real shy. But I love the city, so that's what entices me about Georgia Tech the most, is that it's downtown Atlanta. And so every time I go outside my dorm, it's big city, big lights, and that's the kind of guy I am.
And I keep telling people, man, when Bobby Dodd is rocking a night game, it is one of the best venues. It's a really fun venue when they're having success. So I know you guys are hoping to bring that back, bring a little swagger back to Georgia Tech. Bryce, appreciate it, brother. I know you're on Instagram, you're on Twitter. Let people know where they can follow you and continue to kind of follow your journey throughout swim season and as you get ready to go to Georgia Tech.
Yeah, my usernames on all my stuff is just Bryce Dobson, or all lowercase, no spaces, and you can follow my three sport career as I finished out of high school.
That's awesome, Bryce. Appreciate it, brother. Get some sleep, and what is it? Last week of school for you guys?
Today was my last day of school, so I'm all good.
Oh, you're all good, brother. All right, man. You have a good one. Enjoy the visit.
All right, you have a great one.
That is Bryce Dobson. He does a great job. He's a great kid. He, I think, is going to be one of these guys that we talk about that Georgia Tech needs to take the top off of a defense. They've kind of been missing this, and so he's a speed-first guy. And as a lot of Tech fans know, he plays ball with Dylan Lonergan. He can get it. I mean, he's a guy that can get down the field. They had a really, really good season, ended up short. We got Ralph in the background. Ralph is back there. Don't worry. He's putting in the work. We see you, Ralph. I don't know what he's wearing. I'm not sure. We'll have to get him some Section 103 merch. He's not wearing that. But as Ralph just threw down in the private chat, this kid can freaking move. He can move. So you heard what he said earlier. This is man, Ralph. You're getting shade thrown at you already by John Smoggs here. Ralph will ban you. Ralph will ban you. Don't worry about that. This is a kid that Buster Faulkner said it. And a lot of other people, this is Ralph blocks John Smoggs already. Wow. Lad McConkey-esque. He's a guy that is shifty in the open field and can make some plays. Lucas, I like you, Lucas. You better watch your comments there before Ralph lets you go. Hey, we're going to take a quick timeout. We're going to hear from Dr. Squatch, and when we come back, we're going to dive into this weekend. And, you heard a certain linebacker from South Atlanta is going to be a big piece to the recruiting puzzle. We'll talk about that here when we come back. In just a second, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Your soap is ugh, and your body wash is a synthetic detergent. But you're not a dish. You're a man. Switch to Dr. Squatch Natural Soap for Men. For men who build things. Open pickle jars on the first try. Slay dragons. And let their daughters braid their hair. Men who like to feel good and smell. Titillating. Dr. Squatch takes you places you never thought you'd go. Naked.
All right. Check out Dr. Squatch, some of the best soap. Ralph's got a couple candles. Ralph, do you see Ryan's latest comment over on YouTube? You see that? All right, he says yes. Also, my man Jake Ralph put you down in the Discord. He screenshotted your face, put you in the Discord. So Ralph has his own fans. Let's get into it. My name is Bryce Koon. This is Swarm Talk. We didn't do it last show, so we're going to do it right now before we really lock in. That was Bryce Dobson, wide receiver commit from Brookwood High School, and we got to let you know what you're watching.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The crowded booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Koon.
Let's see right here. We got some comments. Maybe the Wi-Fi is being a little funky. Ralph, is everything looking okay? All right, everything's looking okay. Let's talk here. We're talking Georgia Tech. We're talking a big recruiting weekend for the Jackets. And look, as Bryce Dobson told you earlier, this was some new commitments following last weekend's official visits, and we really feel like there's more likely for this week. So this is what I want you to do. I'm going to run through some of the guys visiting who I feel like also could be big commitments. I'm going to give you kind of an insight on the transfer portal, who's visiting. A couple of Aggies are on campus. And then what I want you to do is I want you to put your questions in there. We'll end it with about a 5 to 10 minute period of questions. Ralph's going to star your questions, and we'll keep coming back. Don't worry, no Palmer Toms tonight. He was scarred from the show. So we'll see. We'll see. Let's start off with the first one I had on my list, guys, and it's Tay Seymour, the South Atlanta linebacker. This is a kid that obviously, like Bryce talked about, he decommitted from East Carolina. And this is a guy that has sideline-to-sideline speed. He finished 4th last spring in the 100 and 200 meters in the state 5A championships. He had this past season 63 tackles and 2 interceptions. With the recent decommitment, we also know this is someone that Kenyatta Watson Sr. was really high on. He's trended more towards the way, and we'll see, obviously what his decision is. I think I've got a crystal ball in for him on 24/7 Sports. I really like this kid. We'll see. We will see where he goes. I like Tay Seymour and his ability to play. Let's go to the offensive side of the football now, to the backfield. This is something that Tech needs. They need to find some offensive playmakers. They need to find a couple of guys that can make some plays in the backfield. We got news today, obviously. You ready for this, Matt? As we've been reporting, that Dante Smith was coming back. He says we're coming back. Jamie Felix is there. Antonio Martin is there. But what else? What is Dylan McDuffie? Is he still there? We don't know. We have no clue what's happening with that situation. Hassan Hall. Hassan Hall is a guy that obviously has, gone through his availability, his eligibility to play. So what are they doing? Let's start down at IMG. IMG Academy on December the 4th, Evan Dickens. This is a guy who is from Roswell. He was originally committed to Coastal Carolina. When Chadwell took the Liberty job, he decommitted. And he's one of 2 running backs that are visiting this weekend. And this is a kid also, guys, that Dickens averaged 8.4 yards per carry. That is that's pretty solid, pretty solid in my opinion, to be able to have the chance to get a first down every 2 times you touch the football. That's pretty solid in my opinion. So Evan Dickens is a guy that I think I'm really excited to see. If we keep rolling to Montgomery County, it's a guy where Cam Wallace is, I think, another running back that is going to be a nice complement to what Dickens can do. This is a kid that had the entire staff at Montgomery County School and wherever he goes to high school. I can't remember. This is going to be interesting because he is going to be on campus. And I would say that Wallace is a priority recruit. And the reason that I say that is his only other official visit is to Penn State. Let's say here, James Franklin has already made an in-home visit. So it's really Tech against Penn State in this race for Cameron Wallace. If Tech can keep this kid home, this is going to be a big win. It gives you depth in the running back room, and it also gives you a guy that rushed for 1,200 yards this past year, 13 touchdowns. He is a priority recruit. Not saying that he's better. I just think that they really like what he has to bring to the table. Let's keep it rolling here. We talked about Bryce Dobson. He's going to be on campus. Ralph threw in the chat, this kid is electric. I kind of want to give you some of the stats. Played with Dylan Lonergan on a really good Brookwood team. Finished his senior season with 35 catches, 691 yards, and 8 touchdowns. He also had 544 kick return yards. Guys, we talk so much about, you know, having a playmaker on special teams and what that can do for you. And if you could bring a guy in like Dobson, which they will, he's said right here on the program already, he's going to sign. I think that's a signal of a guy who can make plays from, who knows, maybe day one in the kick return game as he builds up to playing wide receiver at the college level. We'll see how they want to use him, but I think that's a great trait to have. And with his speed, you could put him in a gunner position on punt coverage. I mean, this is a guy that you could shore up some spots really immediately, so I like this a lot. Let's go over to the defensive side of the football here, because this is where we get interesting. 2 decommitments over the past 24 to 48 hours on the defensive line. Gensley August decommitted 4 hours ago. That was a drop for Georgia Tech. They decided to move in a different direction. You say, well, Bryce, why? It's because they've got this kid who was originally committed to Utah out of Vicksburg, Mississippi, a kid named Caleb Bryant. Bryant is a 3-star. He's got some crystal balls to Mississippi State, but he is going to be on campus this weekend. Now, David Turner is his primary recruiter. Turner, to me, has done a great job of developing some of the interior defensive linemen that we've talked about on the show in the past couple weeks. In this situation, if you can get Caleb Bryant, it makes me feel comfortable with where the defensive line is in the future of it. Caleb Bryant's a guy that right now, 6'3", 6'4", 250 pounds, can play that outside kind of defensive line position. I really like what he's been able to do at the high school level, and I also like what he can bring to the table, playing the inside and outside and being able to move around. He's got really good speed as well. He holds offers, like we talked about. He was committed to Utah. He's got an offer from Oregon, from USC, Georgia Tech, Mississippi State. So good company, really good company. But this is a guy who, when he visits this weekend, we're going to know a lot coming out of this weekend of where he stands. And I think it's imperative that Georgia Tech try to make him stay. Don't let him leave Atlanta without a commitment. We're going to stay here because this is where a big linebacker comes into play. Now, I'm going to get to the portal. That's going to be our kind of last segment for the night. But Michael Montgomery, the 6'3", 230-pound linebacker, has been a guy that, if you are familiar with Montgomery, he plays out of Seattle. But he's a Decatur, Georgia guy, too. Tech is in his top 7, and this is the thing where I really feel like this is going to be his second official visit, first off, to Georgia Tech. But I also really feel like that when it comes to Michael Montgomery, does he want to play out west or does he want to come back home? And he knows that what Georgia Tech can offer. Like we said, this will be his second official visit. You can take those kind of with the new coach and everything. But it's really, really important to me to know, what does this kid want to do? Does he want to come back close to Decatur, come back close to home per se, or does he want to stay back out west? I mean, look, it's a kid that has been offered by a lot of schools out west. I know that Arizona has been in on him. Oregon has showed some interest. Washington State have showed interest. So, it'll be interesting to see kind of where he goes in that sense. Michael Montgomery, remember the name. It'll be a second official visit. Let's go to one that is, I like to think of him as a unicorn. He's a guy that, as someone, Ralph, can you hear that? Do you hear that? You didn't hear that? Good. I'm glad. Someone just throwing their car alarm off like it's not almost 10 o'clock at night. Nakari Ashley, a kid out of Marietta High School. Folks, this kid is 6'5", around 205 pounds. He plays a lot of offense. He plays a tight end position, kind of a receiver type position. He's an athlete. No rating on 24/7, but this is a guy that I think the staff identified, said, hey, this might be a sleeper. And he's gained some notoriety as of late. East Carolina jumped in with an offer. Buffalo, but Georgia Tech is kind of that first Power 5 school to really take notice of a late riser who had a good season this past year at Marietta High School. So where does he fit in? I mean, 6'5", 200, he can play defensive side of the football. He also could play the offensive side of the football. And I think that that's going to be something where he gives the staff versatility. He gives them versatility to be able to do some different things. So I think that's huge to be able to say what he wants to do going forward. As we continue through this list, we're going to go with Stephen Jones. Stephen Jones is another DB. He's a 6'2" defensive back that I really feel like this is a guy that's either going to commit during the visit or shortly thereafter. Travaris Tillman and Andrew Thacker were the guys to offer him. And if you've been around, if you've noticed a trend with some of the recent decommitments in the defensive backfield, I will say this. It's really coming down to the size and length of the defensive back. It's coming down to what are the measurables. And in this sense, and I'll just be honest with you, you see guys have decommitted, haven't had the length that Brent Key necessarily wants on the defensive side of the football. When you have a guy like Stephen Jones playing over in Gadsden, Alabama, Gadsden City High School, he's 6'2", 190 pounds, kind of lightly recruited, but they see something there. I'm ready to see kind of what that goes with as well. We've got a couple more. Benjamin Galloway, this is a current commit, offensive tackle. This is a guy that he has, been committed for a while. Now it feels like unofficially visiting in June. Committed in August. This is a guy who also received an in-home visit from new offensive line coach Jeep Wade. Galloway, kind of the guy that you have on campus along with Dobson to kind of help sell the program. Two more for you here. And I know I'm not getting to potentially everybody, but we're going to get to these last two. Ezra Odenjor, the Alatoona edge rusher. This is a guy who has received 2 recent in-home visits from Georgia Tech coaches. He took an official visit to Vanderbilt last weekend. Auburn and Louisville have also offered. And this is a guy who led an Alatoona team that had some talent, guys, but 81 tackles. And here is the big part. We talked about how we have to be able to replace pass rush, and we have to be able to continue to build that. This kid had 12 sacks this year. 12 sacks. That's Ralph and I are not very good at math, but that's about a little over a sack per game. He's consistent. He can get to the quarterback. I really like where he's going to go with that. And then the last one, Sean already asked the question. He put the question, so Ralph, I'll put this up here. Thoughts on Ashley Williams? What is the situation here? An Auburn commit, decommitted. Williams is going to be on campus this weekend. That's another one of those things where you feel like Tech needs to impress on this visit. That all the stops need to be pulled out. And I'll tell you this too. As we get off of this question, Ralph, I'm going to unstar that one from Ashley Williams. I think he's a fantastic player. But this is what I do think. We all heard from Chase Lane earlier this week. He was on the show. If you haven't, make sure to go to the channel. Go right back to the video where we opened, where we had an interview with him. If King, and you caught me there, David, if Key can hit home with these recruits like he did at Chase Lane, it's going to be really hard for some of these guys to leave Atlanta without committing. And that makes me feel solid. That makes me feel comfortable kind of going into this, into the signing day that is next Wednesday. It's going to be a lot of fun to talk with, people leading up into it. If Key can sell it like he did, I feel really comfortable with kind of how the class turns out. I think it's going to be, a developmental group. I think it's a group too that there's some talent. How do you develop it? That's going to be the big question. All right, let's talk transfer portal, and then we're going to get to some questions. Shorter show tonight, but that's going to be interesting. Transfer portal. All right, we talked about this. We had Chase Lane getting there. We're going to get that question here in a second. We had Chase Lane on the show. He mentioned that a couple of more Aggies were going to be on campus. And we talked about it. We've hinted at it. And so now we'll say it. Transfer portal visitors, Lane was on campus, obviously, today. But who are the other two? Who are some big ones that we were talking about? Well, there's a position of need that I told you the other night was a linebacker position. And it starts with Andre White Jr., the 6'3", 225-pound linebacker. He's a senior from Texas A&M. They feel pretty good about him, and what he can do. The big one, though, from a name perspective, and that's who's on campus, and I think Ralph knows this, but it's Haynes King. Haynes King on campus for the Jackets right now, 6'3", 210-pound quarterback. I think that with King in this situation, the kid was extremely talented coming out of high school. Extremely talented. Hasn't been able to put it together. And what I would argue, if I was one to be an optimistic Tech fan, and a lot of people don't think that I'm too optimistic, I think we're more realistic. But if I wanted to be optimistic, in a real topsy-turvy situation at A&M, like one where, you're having to start against some of the best programs in the country, or some of the best defenses in the country, and you never really get your footing, and especially this year, where we knew that the play calling wasn't set up for success. I think Ralph and I talked about that in an earlier episode that you can go check out, or we will. But I'm optimistic in this sense of where Haynes King could go if he commits, and personally, I think that this is a guy that could commit to Georgia Tech. But King's a guy that could obviously benefit in a Buster Faulkner offense. You've seen what Faulkner has done with a guy like Stetson Bennett, who is mobile, who has ability. King is a very mobile quarterback. I just don't feel like that his strengths were played to at Texas A&M. Jimbo Fisher, a very hard-headed play caller. If he comes to Tech and beats out a Zach Pyron, or Pyron's not completely healthy and ready to go, man, that makes me feel good, guys. It makes me sure feel good of where they've been over the past 3 or 4 years, because you have a guy with elite talent coming out of high school. This is a guy, I mean, Ralph, you may be able to look it up, but I know Haynes King was a 5-star recruit. I mean, this is a guy who was really, really good, was supposed to take A&M kind of back to the top. If they've, well, I don't know when the last time they've been there, but take them to an SEC championship, take them to a college football playoff. I like what King could do with a Buster Faulkner, and I think that's the selling point. 4-star, but a kid that's really good. So it's going to be really interesting if Haynes King can be brought in. I would love to see that. Now, look, all of that contends on, and we'll talk after the kind of the class is brought together, but this is a guy who's a competitor. I think he's a guy that could really benefit in a Buster Faulkner offense if he decides to commit. So we'll see. He's on campus. This would be a massive get for Georgia Tech. Does he have any dog in him, Matt? I think that, I don't know. I'm not sure. All of this to say is, if you can bring in Haynes King, you bring in legitimate competition. And I'll say it again. We've said it over and over and over again. You have to have legitimate quarterback competition, because whichever quarterback rises to the top is going to be better for it. Still has not really happened on this campus in 4 years. Has not really happened. I think Pyron would be better for it if he starts, and so would Haynes King. So we'll see. That's kind of the transfer portal wrap-up. Oh, last one for you. Sergio Allen, linebacker out of Fort Valley, Georgia. I think he played at Peach County High School, transfer from Clemson. He was visiting earlier this week. I think that's another guy. If you could walk away with just your portal, and I don't remember, we said this, I don't think they're going to be big players necessarily in numbers-wise from the portal. But I do think what they can do is they can add some talent. If you walk away with Chase Lane, Sergio Allen, Andre White, and Haynes King, you feel pretty good. And Jackson Long, who they added through the tight end. And I like that. I would really, really like to see that happen. So it would be interesting to see. All right, now we're going to get to a couple questions as we kind of wrap up tonight's show. So, Ralph, let's start off with these starred questions right here. Let's rock and roll as we go here. Lucas, where is Palmer? Palmer's not a guest tonight. Look, man, I just brought him to talk about Buster Faulkner. That's really that's it. Matthew, appreciate you tuning in. You're a longtime watcher and a frequent commenter as well. Yeah, that makes sense. How do you feel about the current offensive line prospects and commits? Look, first off, I think, and Matthew, we talked a little bit about this. I think that you have to let this offensive line grow. You can't keep having a revolving door of guys, because then the chemistry will never build. It will never build to a consistent manner where you feel good about it. Can you add more talented kids? Sure. I really like the class they have coming in. You know, one of my personal favorites is the combination of a Gabe Fortson and Elias Cloy. I love what Gabe Fortson brings to the table as a center. So we'll see. Kind of how we're rolling there. Ralph, let's keep on. Matthew, appreciate you tuning in. The receiver from Charleston Southern, is there any smoke there? Let me check my phone right here because we were talking about this earlier today. And Seth Anderson, yes. So Seth Anderson, the receiver from Charleston Southern, put up some good numbers. He's a guy who has 3 years of eligibility. With Anderson, I think that it's going to come down to who the wide receiver coach is going to be. Who's that going to be? So, if he doesn't feel good about that and he's got an offer from somewhere else that makes him feel more comfortable, I wouldn't. It would be, I wouldn't harp on him having to go somewhere else. I mean, it wouldn't hurt my feelings because I get it. Like, there's no wide receivers coach, so we'll see. Ralph, let's go to the next question here, brother. Lamar County is a great linebacker that Coach Key needs to go see. John, shoot Key an email over on ramblingrec.com. I'm sure he'd love to see that. Or the recruiting staff, hit a DM over there. Let's keep it rolling with the questions here. We ever going to get a legit 5-star, Lucas? Well, yeah. I mean, if they win, you got to win at some point. Got a hangnail here, folks. Can't be having that. Can't be doing that. You got to have you got to win. So I think we're going to, see how that works. Do any of our players in the portal return? No, I don't believe so. I do not believe so. I think Jeff Sims gone, Nate McCollum's gone. Everyone else was maybe a mutual decision to kind of explore the portal and see what's best fit for them. Let's see. Keep rolling with the questions as well. Tobias, giving Gibson some legit development as a backup and having King versus Pine for the starter, we'll be looking at a solid quarterback room. I might like one more, but that can't be helped. Tobias, you're exactly right. You have the 2024 kid committed. You need legitimate pushing. If King and Pyron are batting it out and Gibson's your third string, you feel pretty good about the depth going forward, especially seeing how Winky could already game plan for Gibson. You feel pretty good about it. Let's keep rolling with a couple more questions here. How do you feel about the new running backs coach? We didn't really talk about this tonight. It wasn't in the plans because it kind of just happened and developed, in the past, I should say 12 hours. But this is where, Norval McKenzie, I think, look, this is a really good hire. This is a really, really good hire. Bring in from Vanderbilt, but a guy who's from Atlanta, played high school in Atlanta. I think that it'll be interesting to see how he recruits. He's already offered a running back from Texas. So we'll see. We'll see what happens, but I think that it's a guy that, Andrew, thanks for tuning in. I think it's a guy that is going to bring some really, really good talent in the running back room and continue where that was. Tobias, any chance we pick up a UGA QB transfer at the championship after they lose the semis? Of course. Tobias, on this one, if you were, tuning in to this week's show, was it Monday night, Ralph? We were talking. We had Palmer on. He kind of felt like the most likely option might be a Brock Vandegrift with what Buster Faulkner wants to do. Appreciate that, Jake. I think it's a Brock Vandegrift, but we'll see kind of how it rolls. I don't know. If Haynes King commits, I don't see another transfer quarterback. Another quarterback really in the transfer portal committing. We'll see. Any contact to Nick Jackson from UVA? Sean, not that we're aware of at this moment. I think they're kind of zeroed in on some of the linebackers, including a Tay Seymour that I think they'll be able to get into the high school ranks, including the 2 transfers we mentioned earlier, Sergio Allen and Andre White Jr. We got time for about 2 or 3 more before we rock and roll here. Michael, appreciate you, Michael. Key has blown me away with his hires. Ability to motivate and develop a team in a short time recruiting. In Kiwi, we trust. In Key, we trust. That is, I like that. Might be a t-shirt idea. Shout out to Michael Lane. He designed the shirts. If you want an In Key We Trust shirt or a Swarm Talk shirt, hit the link down below. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Twitter, head over to YouTube, and we'll see how it goes so far. Last question of the night, Matthew Prater. Who is going to take over special teams? Do we see competition for kicker? Aiden Burrow will be back healthy, but I think Gavin Stewart's kind of got that one on lockdown right now until something changes. Special teams, I'm guessing you're taking as the coach. That's what's interesting. Norval McKenzie has special teams coordinator experience. We'll just have to kind of see. We'll kind of have to see kind of what happens. I want to address this before we kind of head over here. And Tony, yes, I want to get your question because I know you've been tweeting at me on this. What about the punting issues? Remains to be seen. Tony, about what they want to do with that. Obviously, Shanahan was kind of hot and cold this year with some of the things that happened, and obviously the block punts were more of a scheme thing. So we'll see. We'll see. I want to address one of the last things here before we let you go tonight. There's been a lot of debate about should Buster Faulkner be allowed to coach Georgia in the playoff. And I say, why does it matter? If he's recruiting, then, it just doesn't matter to me. This is something, too, where it's very common, folks. Like, this is something that is really common that I don't think people realize, where coaches will take jobs and then coach like this. It's also probably, and I'll just say this, the biggest reason that I think it could happen is you haven't seen an official announcement yet from Georgia Tech. That to me, because what are they waiting on in a sense? I don't know what they're waiting on. Look, they like to announce news all at once. It's gonna be one of those things. And for the folks that say he doesn't coach, he analyzes. That's a weak take. It's an uneducated take, because if you could just open up your web browser of choice, Safari, Google, Bing, if you still use that, and you read, it's one of these things where, he'll call a play. Monken will call a play. He is very, very much involved in what Georgia does. Yes, of course, he's an analyst. He is not an offensive coordinator by role at Georgia Tech or at Georgia. But I just think it's one of those things where put the rivalry aside for a second, and if this was an offensive coordinator from Ohio State, or any of the other two teams, TCU, any of the other ones. Who's TCU playing, Ralph? Michigan. If it's any of those, it'd be normal for them to coach throughout that. And there might be there might be an agreement in place where he can do that. Dan Lanning had the same thing. Everyone knew he was taking the Oregon job, but he was coaching Georgia. Kirby Smart did it when he was at Alabama. Other coaches have done this before. It's a very normal thing. So, especially since it's not a head coach role, it may happen. It may not happen. The thing is, we don't know. So it's one of those things where, it doesn't really matter. Like, it's just really not that serious. It's serious to a fan because you grew up hating the red and black and you take it very seriously. It's not one of those things that really is going to affect a ton. He's working, he's recruiting, and like I said, it's up to Key. So whatever he decides to do, it's just one of those things I'm just not entirely too worried about. Tech does not have another game until the spring game. It's one of those things where he's going to have plenty of time. He's obviously already recruiting. And the fact that he is not necessarily an on-the-field coach, like he is not doing things, he's going to obviously help set up a game plan for Georgia against Ohio State. He's going to do some different things. If he was the offensive coordinator or the defensive coordinator, or the head coach or an on-the-field coach, then you could see where, okay, but in this sense, it just doesn't affect a lot of things. Recruiting is going to be done. I know a lot of fans don't like it. And I'm reading some of the comments. It's serious because it affects Bennett. Let's at least spell people's names right. Like, if you're going to insult someone, let's just at least spell their names right. But I'll just say it doesn't really matter. Whatever Kirby and Brent Key decide to do, it'll be interesting. But let's just remember, and I'll leave you with this. And the thing is right here. I like what Matt just said. TBH, flashing a national title ring on a recruiting visit, got to be a good thing. Let him coach. Yeah, it's just one of those things. It's just one of those things that we'll see what happens. So, look, appreciate everyone for tuning in. A little bit shorter show tonight. I don't even know if it went shorter, but that's kind of the recruiting roundup. If you're just now tuning in or you just did, let's see here. Let's go all the way back to the beginning. We had Bryce Dobson on the show. Shout out to Bryce. We're hoping to get some more guests on the show. National Signing Day special next Wednesday. Going to be a lot of fun to talk with all of you as we progress and as we keep going and keep rolling. My name is Bryce Koon. He is Ralph Leary. Ralph,
still on here, right?
are we just thumbs up, thumbs down. Are we going to sleep right after this? Is it? I mean, I'm exhausted halfway through this. So appreciate Ralph. He's doing a great job there behind the scenes dealing with you guys. Have a fantastic rest of your evening. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the follow button, hit the like button, comment down below what you think. Recruiting, going to be a fun weekend. Stay tuned to the Twitter. Stay tuned to everything else as we keep it rocking and rolling and talking more college football, more Georgia Tech next week.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The crowded booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Koon.